HAL's other game released on December 26, 1990 is a bit of a strange one for Famidaily. Almost every other Famicom game that I talk about that didn't get a US release is effectively unknown outside of Japan. But New Ghostbusters 2 gets a lot of attention for some reason. Maybe because it's the good 8-bit Ghostbusters game. Japan got a release of the infamously bad David Crane Ghostbusters game, and the US had their own version of Ghostbusters 2 that was still a pretty weak game. HAL's New Ghostbusters 2 follows the plot of the film. The Ghostbusters reunite to deal with a bunch of new spectral manifestations and a giant river of slime flowing beneath the streets of New York. New Ghostbusters 2 consists of 5 stages, and these roughly correspond to scenes from the film. At the outset, you pick 2 Ghostbusters. The classic 4, Peter, Ray, Egon, and Winston, plus Lewis for some reason. As far as I can tell, there's absolutely no difference between any of them beyond the sprite. The first one you pick will be your lead Ghostbuster, and I chose Winston because he always seems to get the short end of the stick in Ghostbusters media. For example, in New Ghostbusters 2, he's blue. As you play the game, the Ghostbusters operate in pairs. You're steering the lead Ghostbuster, and when you hit the A button, they'll fire their proton stream. If it locks onto a ghost, the secondary Ghostbuster will run up to get into position, and then hitting B will have them throw the trap. It sounds a little bit clunky, but it really works perfectly. You can get into a pretty good rhythm of ensnaring the ghost, and then getting a trap under it. The proton stream doesn't last forever, but you have about 5 seconds before it cuts out, and you can wander around freely once you have a ghost in the stream. As you progress through the stages, your goal is to bust all of the ghosts in each area before you're allowed to move on to the next one. The levels can be a bit maze-like, and they'll loop back on themselves, but the giant arrow that appears when all the ghosts in the area have been busted prevents you from getting lost. You can only move and fire orthogonally. No diagonals here. And that does make New Ghostbusters 2 feel a bit stiff as a run-and-gun. Something that can work to your advantage, though, is that the radius of effect for the trap is pretty big, so it's possible to ensnare and trap ghosts through walls. There are no power-ups in New Ghostbusters 2, and the only collectibles are secrets that can appear to grant you some additional points. The points are actually useful here because that's how you get extra lives, and this is a pretty tough game. Contact with a ghost will kill you instantly, and you're given 3 lives and 3 continues to get through the whole thing. And since the ghosts are, well, ghosts, they have a bad tendency to appear right on top of you, jump out of something right next to you, or just move in a way that you really can't avoid. Once you know the stage, you can get around them, but sometimes you're just going to stumble into a trap. Another issue I had while playing was that some of the backgrounds aren't as clear as they could be. What you can and can't walk on isn't always obvious, and they make you navigate some tight spaces as you fight ghosts. The bosses work slightly different from the ghosts you see throughout the rest of the stage. There you'll have to keep your stream locked onto them for an extended period of time to make them vulnerable. And then, once they are vulnerable, that's when you can trap them. On the first stage, you just have to lock onto these guys, but on the second stage, you only have a split second in which to trap the ghost after you hit it. And on the third stage, your beam will eventually destroy the boss monster until you get to the last one, at which point the trap will work. While there aren't any cheat codes that will really help you here, if you hold down A and B while you're on the title screen, then press Start, you will get to an options menu where you can change the difficulty. And that's really everything there is to playing New Ghostbusters 2. While the capture then trap mechanic looks a bit complicated, it'll only take you a few moments to get used to it. And once you have that mechanic down, that's really everything you need to know. Yeah, there's a huge variety of ghosts with different patterns and abilities that you'll need to figure out, but that's just a matter of playing the game. In Japan, New Ghostbusters 2 is regarded as one of the Famicom's masterpieces. It didn't sell well on its initial release because nothing on the Famicom was selling well at that point, but over the years it's gained a strong reputation, and a similarly strong price tag to go with that reputation. Right now, if you wanted to buy a copy, you could expect to spend around 9,000 yen for a cartridge. My take on New Ghostbusters 2 is that it is as good as its reputation. Of all the classic Ghostbusters games, this is the one that gets the feel right. This is the Ghostbusters game that you always wanted to play. And while the moment-to-moment challenge can be tough, it's also not that long of a game. It'll only take you about 5 minutes to get through any given stage. So it can be tough, but it's not going to break you. In fact, I'm going to go so far as to say New Ghostbusters 2 is the best thing titled Ghostbusters 2. I mean, have you watched the movie lately?